As we approach 2026, the choice is clear. We either optimize for survival or design for growth. Spoiler alert, we design for growth here. Leadership DM, Jay Scott's direct message to his team and clients. Welcome back to the Leadership DM. Faith and I are breaking down Jay Scott's latest article, Stop Optimizing Cost Centers and Start Building Growth Engines. And honestly, this might be the spiciest take yet. What say you, Faith?
Yeah, the headline is basically companies think they can cut their way to growth, and they can't. We see it a lot these days. It's painfully evident, especially in this year that we are closing up, year 2025, because leaders are doing exactly that. They are chasing efficiency like it's strategy. But we're going to talk a little bit about another way to do it, another way to be successful.
Stop optimizing cost centers, start building growth engines. So if you haven't already, download the article and let's get into it. Part 1, optimizing what shouldn't exist.
The most common error of a smart engineer is to optimize something that shouldn't exist. Now, I don't believe this is an engineering problem. I think this is a leadership epidemic.
They're working to optimize their cost centers, right? I mean, as if they're the trying to re-engineer them without going back to the original premise of the cost centers. Like the purpose was to deliver compliance, consistency, and efficiency, not growth. Because the idea was already there. The company started moving, and they became like a car designed to control and react, not to win races. I.e., they're the minivan of the departments, not a race car. They have the cup holders. They're easy to get in and out of, but they're not going to win any races. Likewise, I think these cost centers weren't designed to grow. So all the cost cutting in the world, all the efficiencies, the new softwares, ERPs, the AIs, all the things can get some efficiencies, but ultimately it's not going to lead them to what they need to be doing, which is to be that growth engine.
Mm-hmm. And they should be growth engines. HR, IT, finance, PMO, these are all departments that were created with the essential need to move the business forward. However, a lot of these companies are looking at these departments as these cost centers.
Let's look what's actually happening in the real world right now, which is creating all this trend of cutting costs, right? I mean, of course, it may have started towards the beginning of the year with DOGE trying to cut costs from the government to companies embracing everywhere AI for automation and to move things, to make things quicker and more efficient. And so we see in the headlines, right? From like huge restructures, massive investments in AI leading to a lot of jobs getting lost.
This is the thing I'm a little confused about. So the trend is cutting back in order to optimize, right? And they're going to choose these cost centers to do that. And so they're going to cut back on maybe people and use AI instead, or they're making these cuts to optimize this, that, and the other thing. So, but why is that a bad thing?
Well, I don't think it is. I don't think the message here is that being efficient is bad. I think, yes, all these efficiencies are good and you need to be more efficient in running your shop as a leader. I think the difference is making things, like the quote from Elon, is making things efficient that shouldn't exist. Or automating things that are broken. You don't want to be more efficient, more potent at delivering the status quo.
So they're kind of putting the cart before the horse a little bit when they're making these very reactive decisions.
Yeah, I mean that's really the headline. With all, or behind all these headlines, is it's being reactive. It's reacting to the uncertainty in the economic market with tariffs. It's being reactive to trying to stay ahead of your competitors with all the AI shiny objects and just a general promise of like, if we just had one more app, if we had one more HR program, if we had one more thing that people would be more engaged, And in some cases they are more engaged. And that's why I like about the study, Deloitte's Margin Plus study is wild because, they said, 79% of companies fail to meet their cost saving goals when doing all these things. And that's year over year. It's almost identical to last year's 82%. So like not a huge improvement when you think about the promise of all these things to cut costs. So cutting costs doesn't turn a cost center into a growth center. Reimagining it, changing the mindset of it does. And that's what Jay talks about in his article and what he does with the team and his clients at 120.
So this real world example of what's going on with Omnicom and IPG, which are two giant agency networks, they've merged together and they cut 4,000 jobs, chasing $750 million in savings. Will this save them that, or did this save them that?
It's hard to say. I worked at an Omnicom. That's like a communications holding group, owns a lot of ad agencies. I worked at an Omnicom agency for 7 years, and every year they were constantly like merging and buying other shops. But this one's a big story because IPG is like a whole other conglomerate group. So certainly there's a lot of redundancies within agencies, but even within the agency model back then when I worked at it a few years ago, we already had like multiple, matrix staff models and stuff where ultimately the customer's accounts is one of like 10 accounts that a team's working on. So ultimately, yeah, I might get to those some cost savings because there'll be some redundancies when they merge teams together. But ultimately, though, it's not going to, like talking about customer satisfaction, team member satisfaction, and profitability. They might see an initial spike in profitability, but the customer satisfaction won't be there because it's going to be even more stretched. But their promise is they're trying to like integrate more AI. Again, they're cutting people and they're bringing tools in, thinking that these tools are going to add more efficiencies. And, that may not work.
Okay, so another great example of kind of a real life moment that this is happening is the CapEx story. S&P 500 firms hit near record levels in 2025. They're spending billions of dollars on AI infrastructure, data centers, tech platforms, all that good stuff, while they cut human capital, which goes back to what we were talking about.
Yeah, I mean, because for some companies it isn't necessarily that binary, tool versus people. I think it really is just being reactionary. They're trying everything they can. Yeah, cutting the lower performers is an easy move. And you would argue, why are they still there to begin with? Quickly exit those who can't or won't, right? But beyond cutting back, doing things more efficiently is questioning, are we doing the right things? And in that Deloitte study where they looked at the ones that were able to more successfully cut costs and ones that didn't, wasn't that the ones that did were pulling any different levers, doing any different things from like from the systems, the cost cutting, the CapEx investments, but they were executing at a higher level. They're actually executing their transformation programs. They're executing the delivery of their new AI platforms. They were executing better. And so that's, of course, what we talk a lot about here is executional leadership. But it starts with executing the right things, the things that move the needle. So the big shift in behavior and mindset that Jay drops for each one of the main cost centers. So first was HR. Their big shift was to move from Policy Hub to a performance engine. IT from a feature factory into a tech unicorn. Finance from a budget cop to an investment partner. And the PMO from transformation theater to actually an ROI engine.
Yeah, so Jay lays this out really clear in the article, showing you visually that shift from the cost center mindset to the growth engine mindset. So right now, HR is very much seen as this policy manager. They're conducting morale programs and engagement surveys and making sure everyone is doing the right thing all the time. But if we shift their purpose from this cost center mindset to growth engine mindset, you're now looking at HR as being this team that operates as a performance consultancy. They are coaches, they're leaders, they are building execution capability. They are exiting underperformers quickly because they have been trained, coached, and led to see those people, exiting those who can't and won't for those who can and will. This is their purpose. This is what drives them. Having that team within your organization, that's so powerful because they're bringing in those top performers. They're building your high performance teams. That's what they're there for.
I love that. Trading, compliance for coaching, clarity, and capability. That internal high performance coach, like it's more than a meme, it's like Toby from The Office, right? They're always there just like, I'm going to tell HR. It's like going from the hall monitor to an actual a player, a referee to a player on the field.
Absolutely.
That reminds me of a quote from Steve Jobs when he says, management is about persuading people to do the things they do not want to do. Leadership is about inspiring people to do the things they never thought they could. And so when HR turns from like compliance and managing, trying to manage culture to coaching a high performance culture, that is that game changer.
What a better position to be in, man. No one wants to be the tattletale.
Yeah, no one wants to be Toby from The Office. I mean, come
Yeah, come
on, I
on.
hate Toby. And the shift for IT is to move from a feature factory or help desk to a tech unicorn. What does
The
that look
ticket
like?
takers, which
Yes.
I know a lot of people in IT, and I know they feel this way. They get the ticket in, they perform their duties, they move on, and then people get mad at them when things break, and it's a terrible way to be. No one wants to be in that position. So shifting that cost center mindset to that growth engine mindset, we're now looking at a department that operates like a internal tech startup. They build platforms and automations tied directly to ROI.
I mean, we already know the IT people are typically some of the smartest people in the building.
Yeah.
They're problem solvers. Jay tells the story sometimes about Amazon, right? They built internally their Amazon Web Services, AWS, as a way to serve and execute the vision of Amazon. And of course, that became its own standalone company, or now it's the largest, I think, profit center and growth engine of all of Amazon and really just of all of the internet. And that started from that mindset of IT, not just punching the ticket of like, okay, cool, yeah, we'll do this, to asking those what if and how might we questions. What if and how might we improve customer satisfaction, team member satisfaction, and profitability. And by make that mind shift, now you have these different groups proving their value by creating value.
And then with finance, oh no, they're the scary guys. They're the ones who are holding the purse
Yep.
string. They're the ones who tell you yes and no. They're approving the budgets or catching you when run late, or they're the spreadsheet cop. To now, with this growth engine mindset, they're shaping the business. They're funding smart risks. They're maximizing that ROI because they have been trained and coached to make decisions that are going to benefit the company.
So when I worked at Omnicom agencies and other large conglomerate agencies, they were called cost control because they were there to control the cost. You're there for an instant no. It was all about your expense reports, your budgets, and like it was a no. Imagine though that shift then, if it looks more like, instead of budget cops, to actually look approaching it more like Shark Tank, where you're sitting there with like 4 investors in front of you asking you the questions of how it'll improve customer satisfaction, team satisfaction, and profitability. But really using tools like the challenge opportunity to stress test and think with you as a partner, because they want to fund what's going to work because they have a return on it, not just protecting and holding the margin for the shareholders and stakeholders. So that is a huge shift that would be game changing. I mean, imagine having your own VC firm internally in your organization. Like now all those other departments, they're going to want to get their Shark Tank on and come pulling up with ideas.
Yeah, absolutely.
PMO, or as my kids say, I've learned that PMO actually means piss me off.
I didn't know that.
We're saying the project or portfolio management, product management office, but it still might be pissing you off.
Portfolio management office?
Basically, it's a portfolio of all your initiative and projects. So basically, it's your department of project managers, product managers. Okay. So because any company, whether they're running products or launching initiatives, you have so many different things going on. So sadly, I've become deduced to like producing dashboards, timelines, status reports.
Okay.
With little ROI discipline, because they're really just there to be that babysitter. A lot of these companies have just renamed them, like they're the transformation office. It's the collection of all the things that a company does. It's all your strategic initiatives. So there could be a more strategic part of a company which should be managed like Goldman Sachs manages your portfolio of investments, right? Like if you had 70% of your investments losing you money, dying, just lighting that money on fire every year, you would fire your broker. And so that's the mind shift here for the PMO is to go from that mindset of dashboards, timelines, and status reports to really being like a Goldman Sachs with managing the ROI. That's what we mean by the portfolio ROI engine. So we're evaluating each one of those initiatives as an investment, because it's a huge investment, not just of money, technology, but your heart and head count at your organization to make sure that they deliver those measurable returns. And because when they don't, it's just theater. Everybody's pretending like they're doing shit, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I get it. If you are looking at this cost center mindset, AI could do some of this stuff. But if you're shifting to this growth engine mindset, you are creating leaders, you are coaching, creating high performing teams that are irreplaceable, unstoppable. That's the type of mentality you want these departments to be, because you are now in a realm where this growth engine mindset is benefiting you more than any of this reactive decision making.
Yeah. And that's where we started at the beginning. It's about all these headlines of being reactive, reacting to economic headwinds, to reacting to AI advancements, chasing shiny objects. But even in that, as we looked at that Deloitte report, we saw that the ones that even are winning in that cost-cutting game are doing so through execution. So that just gets you to efficiency. But we're not just about efficiency. We do efficiency in our sleep here at 120. We're about growth and making unstoppable teams and really putting a dent in the universe and building things that matter. And so for that, Jay breaks down he introduces what we call our core system here at 120, which is really that belief system and the execution system, both of them coming together. So the belief is that mindset that we talked about. So we talked about the shifting mindset in HR, finance, IT, and the PMO. Let's break down core.
Starts with clarity of intent. So every initiative is tied to one or more of the three pillars. We say it over and over and over again. It's our mantra. We live by it, breathe by it. If it does not measurably improve customer satisfaction, team satisfaction, or profitability, none at the expense of the other, it's out. Kill it. Don't do it. Operational discipline.
Yes, the D word.
Operational discipline. Rationalize the work. Prioritize relentlessly. Ignore and delay what doesn't matter. That's huge. Take a second, stop, look at that work. Rationalize the work, prioritize, and ignore and delay what doesn't matter, what is not moving the needle forward. R, relentless execution. Movement over potential. Measure outcomes, not outputs.
Yeah, even all those people we talked about that were laid off, right? How many of those they're like, hey, I was busy as hell. I was working 60 hours a week. How do they not need me? I'm a high performer. No, maybe so, but more times than not, they're working hard, So, we talk a lot about busyness is not progress. Working hard does not equal progress.
And then E, engineered trust. Trust built as a result of clarity, discipline, and accountability. As a leader, this is really important. It's what you're putting back into your team. It's the example that you're showing, and the rest of your team very much follows. And
the bottom line is, as Jay says in the article, the organizations and teams that continue to try to optimize their cost centers will continue to get the same results. Sometimes a more efficient cost center, but at the end of the day, it'll still be a cost center. Their transformation will experience fatigue, with 70+% of them failing. They'll continue to miss goals. Teams will be burnt out because they're going to be working so hard to prove themselves, working on projects that just don't move the needle. So what core does is it helps do that and transform those cost centers into growth engines. But if you're like, you know what, that sounds really cool, but how do I start? I can't transform my entire team. I can't transform my entire organization. It just breaks it down to one simple question. One simple question has the unlock to begin it all. Drum roll, Faith.
The one question you ask yourself before any initiative is greenlit is this: does it measurably improve customer satisfaction, team satisfaction, or profitability? And none at the expense of the other. If the answer is no, it's out. That's it. Basic as that. If it's yes, heck yeah, that's freaking awesome, because guess what? You are measurably improving customer satisfaction, team satisfaction, or profitability.
So if you're whether you're in the C-suite or sweeping their floors, asking this question to the people that you work with, it'll show that you yourself are a leader, because you're leading and thinking about things that they should be thinking about. And inevitably, once the team starts thinking about these things, you'll start doing these things. Because if you're not measuring these things, if you're not asking how it will improve these three pillars, the likelihood it will is very, very slim. So quit chasing optimizations. Instead, Start building growth engines with your customers. So cutting costs doesn't turn a cost center into a growth center. Reimagining it, changing the mindset of it does. HR must become a performance consultancy, IT, a tech unicorn, finance, an investment partner, the PMO, a portfolio ROI engine. In other words, stop running cost centers, start running growth engines. Okay, that wraps up this DM. If you haven't yet read Jay's article, follow the link in the caption here, read it, share it with your team, challenge them on what they can do, that question they can ask, that secret question we gave you earlier, that they could ask to change their role, their team, their department, their entire company into a growth engine. So follow us every week. We drop a new leadership DM for tips, tricks, war stories from the trenches of 120 VC, where we work with teams to do exactly this. Don't miss a beat.
Thanks for watching.
All right, Faith, it's that time. Let's Zoom high five. Woo!